Construction of Woodbury County's new law enforcement center.
The project architect said today that its consultant is the primary entity to blame for failures of the project's mechanical system. An official from the architectural firm read a statement at today's meeting of the Law Enforcement Center Authority. The authority, by the way, oversees the entire jail project. The official said the mounting media coverage about the project threatens the livelihood of that firm because of the consultant's engineering errors. The project architect is Goldberg Group Architect, and the consultant is Introba. In the letter, which was released today, the architect says it will not continue to take the blame for the consultant's slow and incomplete responses. The entire project, by the way, is about $20 million over budget and has faced several delays, including a delay in opening the LEC, the delay from September of last year to late July of this year. The board overseeing the project has blamed the architect, general contractor, and consultant for those delays. The letter is lengthy, and we haven't received a response from Introba, but you can check out the story right now on our website, ktiv.com, for the full details.